back.
Haha, yes, here we are again. Two girls, one mic
Podcast.
podcast.
Yes.
Why did we start this podcast?
Why did we start this podcast? Well, first I want to mention that we don't even know each other very well, very long.
True.
Which is quite remarkable and something that I really, really like. I mean, I like these kinds of things. I like
too.
to connect with people, and sometimes you feel an immediate connection, and there's just good energy, and that's what we felt when we met.
True. Totally.
So just for everybody to know, we met because you interviewed me for, as a coach, you have your YouTube channel and you do very short interviews with people, and somebody suggested that to me or referred me, and I was there. I never heard, your name. I didn't know who you were. That was a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
And wait, I'm just gonna, one moment. And there was an immediate connection,
Yes,
right?
there was.
And then I think we had one meeting after that, a few weeks later.
Correct.
Which was really nice. And that was already when you said, I want to do a podcast.
Yeah, with you.
And I was like, with me? I was in the beginning, and I thought it was great because, as you all know by now, I love talking. And we started this.
Yes, and here we are.
And here we are.
And
why? You tell me why.
Before you're ready. First lesson. Start before you're ready.
Yes.
If you have a nudge inside of you and think, oh, this could be great, just do it.
Exactly. Yes. And yes, with regards to my business, that's definitely something that I learned, and that you again showed me that this is true, because we're starting this not really knowing how to freaking do a podcast. I mean, all the technical stuff and stuff like that, but we're learning along the way. Tell everybody then, why did you want to do a podcast?
Because I think we have a lot to say. We have experienced a lot and still do. We both have a coaching practice where we hear a lot of issues, problems, pains, doubts, fears, you name it. And I also believe that's universal. So it's not only for the clients that come to our practice, it's the whole world is thinking and doubting and fearing about something, somewhere, somehow. So we thought of, at least I thought, and I think you do as well, that we need to talk more about the issues that we're dealing with. And that makes it easier to deal with the issues.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's why we started talking and started this podcast. And we came up with a list of all kinds of subjects.
Long list.
We said, let's do 12, but I think we can go on for 2 years.
Yes, because when you told me that this is what you want to do, and the examples of topics, I was so happy and enthusiastic because, you asked me, so you sent me a list of topics and asked me, do you have any other topics? And I remember I was sitting at a coffee shop here in Curaçao, overlooking the ocean, and I was like, oh yeah, let me do that now. I was waiting actually for a client, but I was a little bit early. And I was on my phone, and I just couldn't stop writing. I had yes, there were so many topics because I love people. I love to watch them. I love to talk to them about what's going on with them. I am fascinated by their relationships and how the relationships change, and how sometimes there's a lot of hidden fear and sadness and underlying emotions and stuff that's going on. And sometimes I think, wow, I can't believe that people just don't deal with these stuff, right? They suffer in silence. And
and that's because, and I think you heard that as well in your practice, a lot of people think they are alone with their doubts, with their fears, with their pains. They think they're alone. Everybody who comes in with me always tells me, when they have told the whole story, the first intake, they always look at me and say, I guess you never heard this story, right? And I'm like, really? Do you really think that you are the only one dealing with this problem?
Yes.
Because we never are. But we
No.
always think that.
And it's such a relief to hear that you're not the only one. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you can literally see like the shoulders
Yes,
lift
people relax
when,
like, oh my God, I'm
yeah,
not the only one. Thank
yeah.
God.
Which is why I so love group coaching, right?
Hmm.
So, I work with teen girls, and this is
Uh-huh.
one of my goals this year
Yeah.
in Curacao to start a group coaching, because especially girls,
Yeah.
teen girls, remember the teenage years?
Hmm.
They always think they're the only one. And
Hmm.
that can lead to very dangerous behaviors
Yeah.
or just a lot of insecurities. So
Hmm.
I love that connection. I've done a few of those
Hmm.
before, and I just love that connection and the immediate like relief of, oh my God.
Yeah.
Or, okay, I'm not as bad as that, right?
Right. I'm not as crazy as you. Yeah,
That could be helpful too.
for sure.
But today's topic, let's start
Yes,
because
yes, 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 yes. This is
such
Marielle's topic.
oh
People,
my God, it is such an interesting. It is one in
people
my
like
top
it.
three.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Really? Okay.
yes,
Interesting.
and
And
I
it's
believe,
about,
yeah. Oh no, because I believe that at some point,
uh-huh.
not now. I'm so busy with my girls and the coaching, but at some
Mhm,
point,
mhm.
I want to dive into that topic more. I want to
Oh,
study
okay.
it more. I want to do some more research. I want to learn more
Uh-huh,
because this topic kind of pops up in childhood,
uh-huh.
teenage years, adulthood, later
Mhm.
on. It's interesting. You introduce a topic.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how we could call it. I would say siblings.
Yes, sibling rivalry. I
Correct.
mean, I already was thinking this
Mhm.
morning as I was thinking about what we're going to talk about. I mean,
Uh-huh.
this is like we can do 10 podcasts about this because sibling fighting, sibling rivalry, adult sibling rivalry,
Mhm.
parenting kids, and dealing with sibling fighting.
Uh-huh.
And there's a difference between sibling fighting and sibling rivalry.
Uh-huh.
The being the youngest, the
Jealousy,
middle one, the
anger.
oldest.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things
Mhm.
about this topic that are
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, true. True.
So
Okay, what
let's
is your
start with
quote?
it with the quote. Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, I have so many
Oh,
that I
really?
find. Yes, because every time I thought, okay, no, 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 no. I'm going to choose this one. It's from Jeffrey Kluger, and he
Mhm.
said, "There may be no relationship that is closer, finer, harder, sweeter, happier, sadder, more filled with joy and freight with woe than the relationship we have with our brothers and sisters."
Oh, okay.
So both positive and negative, right?
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay, okay. I'm gonna let it land.
Hmm.
I'm gonna let it land. My quote is more from the perspective from the parents,
Okay.
because I think um, that, yeah, the brothers or the sisters feel a certain way, but the parents feel it differently and they act differently. And that's my quote.
Okay.
It is: the first child eats dirt, the parents call the doctor. The second child eats dirt, the parents clean out their mouth. And the third child eats dirt, and the parents wonder if they still need lunch.
That's true. I
You
have
get
three
easier
kids.
along the way. You get easier along the way. And the kids can inter, how do you say that? Can relate it, can relate to it like, oh, they love me less or more for that matter. But it's a different generation and it's a different kind of relation for the parent as well with the children. And I think that that's what the children feel. And therefore they project it on their brother or their sister.
Yes. Let me think about that. Yes. I do think that, yeah, that plays a role,
For
obviously.
sure,
Yes.
yeah. And parents are a lot more careful with the first baby, for the newborn. Of course. You're
Yes.
not experienced. You don't know what you're doing. And it's just overwhelming, and you try to be as good as you can.
Yes.
The
And I know
second
that
child is different.
that's true. That is absolutely true. And I think things have changed a lot, right? I think that now we are more aware of sibling rivalry and more aware of the importance to treat your children equally, in the sense that, you know, love them equally. And so there's a lot more information now.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that, you know, there's also part of it that you can't avoid, you know, as a parent. At least that's my experience, you know. This is, you know, my professional background, so I knew a lot about it. And I remember when my second child was born, and my oldest one was 10 months old. No, wait a minute, 18 months old. 10 months? What? Are you crazy? No.
It was quick, but not that quick. Okay.
No, he was 10 months old when we found out that, yes, that I was pregnant. But yeah, so they're 18 months apart, two boys. And I remember the first year, I was really conscious of the fact that of not excluding him and not, you know, giving him the sense of, no, you still belong, because I was so scared that he would think, right? And I think in hindsight, I was a little bit too much. On the other hand, you know, I have 3 kids, right? And I think that to some degree, you know, it's not your fault as a parent that with your oldest, you're more careful. How you raise your kids will change.
Sure.
And that will have an effect. There's not a lot you can do about, well, there's a lot you can do about it, but not, you know, there's always be those differences. And you're right, from a kid's perspective, but I think that a lot of that will disappear once the kids grow up a little bit, right? So when you're in your teenage years, you can see that, or you sense, for example, well, my parents love us all the same, and you can understand why. But when they're little, maybe, then
it feels differently.
Yes.
And probably you cannot really out yourself in a particular way that it makes sense to you what is going on, because you can feel something, but maybe you cannot express what you're feeling.
Right. And I mean, kids feel, even when they're 1 year old, they sense and they see what's going on. And so especially if there's the second or the third sibling, that's how they learn. And that's huge. That's how they learn. They watch what's going on, and they learn how to manipulate, and how, you know, what their order is in the family, and how they, so I find that fascinating, you know, how that impacts just who you are, because it does impact who you are.
I don't have that kind of experience, really. I am the 1, 2, 3. We have 4, and I'm the third.
Okay.
We are 1 year apart. I'm adopted, so it's easy up the ladder. So I have one younger brother, and then I have an older sister and an older brother. I never felt anything, actually, like a difference in that, in the order, or in, oh, he's getting spoiled, or he or she is this or that. No, never.
No.
Never.
What was so, of the 4 siblings, what was your kind of role in the family? Because usually we have, like, you're either, you know, I don't want to go into black sheep, but are you the joker? Are you the most responsible? Are you the most quiet one? Are you the one who resolves the conflicts? What was your role in the family? Do you know?
Well, actually, I was always the one for my younger brother. So we were like this. But I had the same connection with my sister and my older brother. But I have the same connection with my older brother and my older sister.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how they look at me.
Right. What do you think? That was going to be my second question.
Yeah.
How do you think they will look? How would they see you, your role?
I think they all would say, I always did my thing. Yes, and that's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always did my thing. And it could be with them, but it could also be very good without them.
You're very independent then.
Very. Yeah. So family is nice, but I can be very good on my own as well. So I think, yeah, they would say that.
That's interesting. That is interesting. Well, when I talk to people about this topic, it's really an interesting topic. And I was so sorry because I couldn't, what we always do, we ask a few people a few questions about this topic, and then we talk about it here in the podcast. And a lot of the people that I know are on vacation, or a lot of people in general are on vacation now. So I didn't get to talk to many people, but I've talked about this topic so often because I often bring it up.
But how are you in your family? Which one are you?
Oh, yes. I am. So I grew up with my mom and my brother.
Yeah.
He's 2 years older than me, and we're, we have a very good relationship. He is a very easygoing. We never had huge issues. I mean, I do remember when I was younger that he was the older brother, and he had his own friends, and I was the little sister. But we did not have major conflicts. There was no jealousy, no rivalry, and so I grew up believing that, for example, and that my mom loved us both. There was definitely no rivalry because of how my mom parented. But my brother was definitely very easygoing, and I was more rebellious. Kamla, have we lost you? Yes, I think we lost Kamla. Where's Kamla? Wait, I'll just pause the recording for a moment.
Yes.
Yes, we're back.
We're back. Something went wrong here with the electricity. So just a pause, but we are right back and all ready to go in.
Yes. So I was telling you, but you weren't there anymore. But anyway, I was telling you that I think the biggest difference between me and my brother is that he is very laid back and easygoing, and I was more rebellious. So I had more conflict with my mom when I was a teenager than he had, but there was no rivalry at all. It is just that later in life, when I grew up, when I worked with people as a counselor and then as a coach, I discovered that this was a topic that actually not a lot of people really, well, they talk about it, but I think they don't realize how much of an impact it can have if people have another experience than we both had growing up. So there's a lot of underlying.
They feel issues, but they are not concrete in where it's coming from.
Yes, because yes, exactly. Or it kind of surprises them sometimes, because I love to ask questions, and I find this topic fascinating. So I often ask about sisters and brothers and how the relationship was, and how they were parented, and if they felt there was jealousy and rivalry, and stuff comes up, and then they often seem so it's kind of a little bit surprised about how these emotions still come up as an adult. And actually, I read that in a research, 1/3 of people in general, so that's what they discovered through research, that still describe their sibling relationship as not good, like distant, or with rivalry, little in common, competitive, hurtful, and they often stay locked in that old patterns. So that's huge. I mean, 1/3.
That's a lot of people.
Yes. I mean, and we both belong to the 2/3 of, let's not forget, 2/3 are either very strong or just normal and
just fine. Yes.
Good relationships. But 1/3 is huge.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, yesterday I saw an interview with a guy, multi-millionaire, blah, blah, blah. And he said that he talked to his brother, who was an older brother, and he told him, or he said to him, you know, I'm still figuring out how I have to deal with you. And I was like, oh wow, he's going there. And then he told that his brother said the same thing, and it was not out of rivalry or jealousy. It was more out of, I admire you so freaking much, and I feel lesser than, but I know it's not true. So I thought, oh,
That's
that was
still rivalry.
it was so big, yes. And I said, oh wow, but
Yes,
he opened the conversation,
that's
and
really
I think that,
admirable.
yes, and a lot of people just keep their mouth shut, afraid of the answers, afraid of what might come up for the other person or for them, and then, but then you will never know.
Well, and it does help to talk about it and to let it out. And it's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly okay and it's normal
Mm-hmm.
to feel jealous, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. But
Yeah.
it takes guts to admit that you're
Right?
jealous or
Yes.
that you're, for example, you know, especially if this is something that has been that it's like an old pattern, like ever since you were small,
Uh-huh.
or you feel like your brother or your sister has had more attention from your parents, and that kind of, you know, because I believe that that kind of stays with you the rest of your life, and it's
Okay.
really difficult to deal with it if you just suppress it, right?
True. True.
And there's, I think there's also a lot of shame in, for example, when we're adults and your brother or your sister is more successful or has or is happier in the
Uh-huh.
marriage, or
Uh-huh.
you know, achieves something and that you're jealous of, and
Uh-huh.
it's okay
Uh-huh.
to be jealous, you know, and
Mhm.
all, it's okay to have to, it's okay, it's, I think it's sad if you suppress it
Yeah.
constantly
Well, you
because
have
that
to accept
goes
that you're
away.
jealous.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly, admit it, admit
Yeah.
it, because
Yeah.
then that release,
Yeah.
sometimes even just
The
saying it
pressure. Yes.
will just make it
Yeah.
kind of, make it better, make it
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Or make it known, like, okay, so you know what? I'm jealous of you.
Yes,
Yeah. And
yes,
then you can open a conversation, because most of the time your brother or your sister will react like, really? Why? I always admire you because of la 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 la. So it's,
exactly.
they never feel, of most of the time, they never feel like they're better than you are, or they admire your strengths. So it's
Yes,
a lot of the talk in your head and the stories
yes,
you make up about the relationship you might have or might not have with your siblings.
yes,
And most of the time it's not true.
yes, exactly. And it, for example, also when, you know, you, I often hear people say, when there are more siblings, oh, he was the favorite one, or he was the spoiled one. Like, you know, a lot of times, stereotypically, the youngest one, but not necessarily. He's always the, you know, the good boy or the good girl of the family. And um, I think that oftentimes that's also um, quite hard for the one who has that label,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
And because, you know, oftentimes they didn't choose that label,
True.
and it's not, you know, for example, a lot of times you hear that when the youngest, the parents are a lot easier, you know,
True.
relaxed, like that we, you talked about that in the beginning, like
Yeah.
when you're third child you're a lot easier, laid back, times change, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you know, if you keep that as the older children, if you're the oldest one and you're frustrated about that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then that kind of the competitiveness or the
Mm-hmm.
jealousy, that kind of, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes can get out of control,
Yeah. True.
especially if they don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. So true. Yeah, because the questions were,
Yeah.
um, who is, no, was there a favorite
Hmm.
in your family? Was it you? And does it still happen, or is it still the truth? Is
Yes.
there still, even when you're a grown up, is there still that favorite one of your parents?
So
And
what did people say in your case that you,
um, one girl said, yes, I am the favorite. At least that's what my brother says. Because that's also the thing. The brother can say it, but you don't have to feel that it's the truth.
That's true.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then another girl said, she said, no, there was not a favorite one. And then the other one said, yes, there was a favorite one, but it was not me.
And did it still, and did they still, yeah, and did they still, the last one, did he or she still felt that way now, or did she have any resentment towards?
A little, yeah.
You
Yeah,
see?
but she recognizes that actually she's still living in the past. So she's aware now that it's probably a story she made up. But she says, still, I feel like if my parents say something about her, I feel like, you know?
Yeah.
She feels like, oh, I don't know. There's still a little, a little painful something going up. But on the other hand, she also is aware that she's feeling it. And I said, but are you able to open up the conversation with your sister? But maybe your sister feels the same about you.
Yes, and? Was she?
Well, not yet. Not yet, she said. Not yet.
Right, well, maybe your questions inspired her to do so.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, and I mean, I would encourage everybody who's listening to have these kinds of conversations. You know, even if you don't, you know, it's not a big topic in your life, but it's always interesting to hear how your siblings have experienced your childhood together. And,
well, that's the thing. Yes, because maybe you don't have an issue, but maybe they do.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Or, you know, if you do know that you are daddy's little princess. So because there's a lot of out there, you know, and also that's what we kind of do. Actually, I'm guilty of that too. I have two boys, and then there's a big gap, and then I have a girl. And I think it's, and I say it even without thinking, you know, that, oh yes, she's daddy's little princess, but I have to be careful about that. And so I've stopped doing that. But you know what? There's a lot of, in our society also, people assuming, saying, oh, she's daddy's little, you know, especially because she's a lot younger. And yes.
And the girl with two boys, so yes.
Yeah, we need to be more careful with that. We need to watch what we're saying, even though it's innocent, even though it's a joke or something like that. But on the other hand, you know, that's
but
also.
Is she? Is she daddy's little princess?
Because when I'm honest, really, she's just as close to me as she is to her dad, and I don't think that we necessarily spoil her more than the other two boys. But I wonder what the other two boys really think about it. I know that my middle child, I mean, is sometimes can be the typical, what you hear about the middle child, feeling a little bit not left out, but feeling like, well, the oldest one gets a lot of attention and the youngest one, and that's don't.
What about me?
Yes, and I found that always so interesting, because I'm very aware of, and I'm interested in this topic. So in my parenting, I hope that my children know that, you know, I have no favorites, and I think they do. I really believe that they do.
Have you ever asked them?
No, I don't, but we do talk about it. We do talk about it, but I never straight out asked them, do you think I have a favorite? Well, actually, no, with my second son, I did have, not recently, but I did have conversation with him about that, because I find it very important for him to talk about it, you know, and then to express it. And he does. I mean, it depends a little bit on the day, of course, you know. And I also talked to him about not using that as an excuse, because, you know,
that could also be the case, for sure.
Yes. And also when they're older, you can have conversations with them about, because they always, kids will say, well, why don't you do this for him and not for me, and why, well, he did get that. And I have conversations with them about, well, you're all three very different, and you all need different things.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, because I'm not that kind of mother that like, very worried about. No, I mean, come on, that's life.
Hello. Yes.
I have to learn this. That no, sometimes he needs something, then we give him that, and another time, and they know that because they've experienced it, right?
That's a good point. I remember my kids were the first grandchildren of my parents. But we lived overseas. My parents live in Holland, and we lived on Curacao. So it was a big deal, especially for my mother. And now that you're saying this, I remember that when she came from vacation, and they would stay like 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, and then they had a really close interaction with the first grandchildren. I have a twin, so it's 2, a boy and a girl. And I remember that my mother would always count the gifts.
Oh yeah.
And till this day, she does this. Till this day. And I remember me telling her, like, come on, really? No, it has to be fair. It has to be. I said, but sometimes you just see more stuff for girls or boys, and that's perfectly fine. They don't care. But she said, no. They should be the same.
Yeah. Yes. And but I think you should be careful about it, as a parent, because I think here's another taboo. Taboo to say, I like one of my children more than the other. And I think there's a good reason for it to be a taboo. In the sense that I think that, yes, for some, to some level, it should stay a taboo. In the sense that, but I think it's okay to admit to yourself, hey, yes, one child could be, the personality could be, a better fit with you as a parent, or their interests or whatever it is, or just, sometimes it's just location that one child lives closer and then you have more contact with it than the other one. It doesn't mean that you love them more, but sometimes just the connection is there, and it's easier to be their mother than the mother of your other child, and that's okay. I think that's okay. But I really think you should be very careful to say something about that, or to definitely not show it. Yes. And I think that sometimes it could be
hard.
Right. Well,
because sometimes you don't have to say it, but they can feel it in your energy or the way you look at them.
Right, and that's why I think that then you should be aware of that, and
very conscious,
and try to correct, any bias that you might have, or to also consciously spend quality time one-on-one with the other one, even though that might be harder at that point, because also people change and relationships change, and no matter, it doesn't really matter if you are more connected with one than the other, because you're a parent and it's your job to give them love equally and to love them equally. So I give them
what they need, because not every child needs the same thing.
That's true. That's true.
And so it might feel, or it might look like, especially from the outside in, like, really? Why are you treating him or her differently? But that's just because they're different humans.
That's true. But
they need a different approach. And I totally agree with you that they shouldn't feel like they're different in that way, especially when they're younger. Because when they're older, you can talk about it. You can explain it. And they also will see the same thing, because I believe that children also treat their parents most of the time differently.
Yes, that's true.
So then they can understand what it is like for a parent as well, because they do the same thing as a child.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. People use this,
So
but that's when they're older, right? When you can talk.
That's when they're older. Yeah. But I believe that children are a lot smarter than we think.
Yeah.
They see and feel and sense a lot more than we think.
Yes.
And so older, I'm not saying like you have to wait till they're 16,
No, absolutely not. No,
right?
but I absolutely agree with you that every child needs something different. It's just that from my experience,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can do things as parents
Mm-hmm.
that we're not really aware of,
True.
or that we're not dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and that so it's not talked about.
Uh-huh.
And
It's so
then that kind of stays, can go on the whole childhood. And then, I talk to so many adults that feel that way, and I'm thinking, I wonder, if you talked about that
true.
or
Mm-hmm.
openly
Yeah.
earlier with your parents, that could
Uh-huh.
have helped. Maybe
Yeah.
not, but I
Yeah. Yeah.
just think that you should be really aware of just sibling rivalry.
Mm-hmm. I had a boyfriend. I'm divorced, and later on I had a boyfriend,
Mhm.
and he had two daughters of his own. But when he came by at my home, and my children were still at home, um, he was only interested in my daughter, and it was really, 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 really disturbing.
Yeah.
And I,
Oh, and not in your son, you mean?
not in my son. He was only interested. He only asked questions to her. He only looked at her. He was like hi, and then all the focus was always on her, and she felt very uncomfortable because of it. I
Yes.
felt very uncomfortable because of it, and my son was like, "What is going on here?" So first, I talked to my son. Is it just me, or are you feeling the same thing? Because I'm
Yeah.
human. And then he said, no, it's true. And then I talked to my daughter. I said, yes, no, mom, you're totally right. I don't understand because, and she was almost like rejecting him. So she was not even nice, but still he was going for her always. And then I confronted him and said, you know what? I don't like it. These are my children, and they're two. It's not one. And I said, the fact that we have dinner together and then everybody's sitting at the table and you only talk and look and give all the attention or to me or my daughter, and my son is really left out, is not okay for me. And if you're not going to change it, we have to break up because of it. And he was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. He was not conscious that he was doing it. And it
Mm.
took him a while, like he really had to put effort in it to see and talk also to my son. So I think a lot of people don't even acknowledge or are aware of what they're doing.
Yes,
And
that's
he
true.
was a parent.
Yeah, that's strange. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I would really like to know, okay,
Oh.
what was behind that, because there is
Yeah,
something behind it.
he
There's
said like, yeah, but I have daughters. I don't know how to connect with a guy and la 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 la. Okay, yeah, could be. I don't know.
okay. Well, it's interesting, but it's really good that you talked about it and early on, because
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Hey,
also one
that's
thing
not
that you.
flying with me, honey. No.
Yeah, that's super
Uh,
strange.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, um, well, actually, this is also something that I read
Uh-huh.
in that a lot of times when your sibling marries,
Uh-huh.
that's no, not a lot of time. That often is the reason for more distance, more conflict. That
Uh-huh.
the spouse can come in between sibling relationship.
Oh, yeah, that can happen. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because then, the sibling chooses obviously their partner,
Hmm.
and if there is a conflict, and
Hmm.
yeah, I found that very interesting. I mean, I think, yes, of course, that is
Hmm.
true, and it's so strange because you have the relationship with you have a much longer relationship with your brother or sister, and then this new person can come in. That's what from the experience that I have with friends and people that I work with.
Uh-huh.
This new person comes in, but
Mhm.
that relationship they have, of course, is very intense. It's a different type of relationship,
Mhm.
but it's newer. And then there's this also kind of a rivalry,
Yeah,
or
yeah. It can be. It
maybe
can be
also
like
from the spouse.
it can be like, oh, you have to divide your attention, your love.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's true. True. Could
So
be. Could be.
you have to kind of find a new balance.
Hmm. Well, let
And
me tell you, I am adopted, and when I was 40, I met for the first time, my biological father. And he was a father of 17 children, including me. Like a big family. Different wives,
okay.
Caribbean man, different wives. But from one wife, he had 9 children. So that was
Yes.
the stable one, let's say it like that.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing about it is that I was the latest one who entered. I was not the youngest, but I was the latest one who entered the family because of my adoption.
Yes.
Um, but all those brothers and sisters welcomed me like I belonged there from birth.
Wow. That's amazing.
Amazing, amazing. And they also told me, my father unfortunately died. And they also told me that Kamla, you gave him so much and I got to know him like 5 years. You gave him so much and it made us so happy to see him that happy with you. So of course we're gonna embrace you. And it was overwhelming. It still is. It's overwhelming. And they want a relationship with me. And I'm not sure if I'm ready for it because one, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Two is you can never build the same relationship as I had with my adoptive brothers and sisters because I've known them for 40 years already. And
Yes.
these people I only know for 5.
Yes.
And we share a father, but still I don't know nothing about them.
But they want to. They want to
They
more
do,
than you.
yeah, they do, they do.
Yes.
And everybody in their same, and so, with some people you click more than the other because, they're
Yeah.
humans and I am.
Of
So,
course.
sometimes you feel like, oh yeah, this one is a good one. And sometimes they say, I know you, but it's okay. Let's keep
Yeah.
our distance. Um, and it's also nice to see because I'm looking from the outside in their family, in their sibling thing going
Yes.
on. So I also spotted there, some click, some don't talk, some um, tolerate each other, not necessarily love each other. It's
Right.
all kinds of different dynamics, and it's beautiful to see, I think. But it's such a different, dynamic than the family
Absolutely.
I grew up in.
Yes. Of course. Yeah. It's such an interesting topic also, being adopted and then that's a very special story, of course, that
Uh-huh,
you
it
at
is.
40 years old
Mm-hmm.
entered a whole new big family who is
Big.
very welcoming,
Uh-huh.
because it could also be otherwise, and that also,
Yes.
when you're rejected from
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
family and
So
that.
who are you? Yeah.
Exactly. So
Uh-huh.
this is, I mean, it's a lot better to have them say, "Oh, welcome," but
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the overwhelm.
Yeah.
But and I also just the fact that you are at a later age, of course, part
Uh-huh.
of two families
Uh-huh.
with two groups of siblings
Uh-huh.
with and totally different position within the family, relation, of course,
Uh-huh.
it's much newer, but
Mhm.
still two different families and how
Mhm.
families respond to each other. I think that's it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And again, do you think that um, family is family? Like, for example, I had another quote here that says, related to that,
Uh-huh.
blood means you're related. It doesn't mean you're family.
True. I totally agree. No, but it is
Yes.
true. It is true. Um,
So
yeah.
what is family then to you? If you say that.
Family to me is the ones where I connect with the heart.
Yes.
That's family to me. And you don't have to have the same blood to make that connection with your heart.
That's true. I agree. But um, Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, I've lived in so many places and I have
Mhm.
always gathered my family of choice around me. And I still
Mhm.
have,
Uh-huh.
friends that I consider my family because, you
Mhm.
know, they know me so well, but, or I feel really at ease and I trust them
Mhm.
completely. But
Uh-huh.
still, the thing is with siblings, obviously, you have
Mhm.
that shared childhood
Yeah, that
and
is
that
true. But maybe
connects
because
you.
I was so independent, I don't feel it like that. And maybe the adoption also plays a part in that.
Hmm.
Um, because let's say if there is a real issue in my
Yes, exactly.
life, I will not connect with my brother or my sister. I won't. I will
You,
call my family friend.
yes, yes, yeah.
So it's a different kind of connection.
It is a different kind. That's it. It's a different kind of connection because you also see in people
Hmm.
that when they're getting older,
Hmm.
they sometimes go back or value the
Uh-huh.
relationship that they had as siblings more.
Hmm.
Um, and that has to do with many different things. I mean, you're getting
Hmm.
more sentimental, you lose more
Hmm.
people, or, you know, there is that shared,
Hmm.
yeah, upbringing. And I think that when you're between 20 and 60 or something like that, you're so busy with your own life, and
Hmm.
then you're a little bit more disconnected. But and it so depends on everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
some people grow up in very strong families and they can
Uh-huh.
sometimes feel like they're
Yeah.
suffocating and they want to break out. Yes,
Yes.
but other people really love
Love
it.
it.
And
Yes.
yeah, and have a hard time being away from their
Uh-huh.
immediate
Yeah,
family.
and doing
So
everything with their siblings.
yes.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, because that can lead to all sorts of different problems, right?
Uh-huh.
Because then you have the siblings, and if you have, like, for example, you have these families who have this family get-togethers
Uh-huh.
and traditional
Mhm.
family vacations,
Uh-huh.
or they always get together at Easter or at Christmas and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But
Uh-huh.
the bigger the family becomes,
Mhm.
there's always conflict. I mean, how many movies are not
How many Christmas did you have? Yeah, yeah.
about that? Because then you have those, yeah, then these old patterns, I believe,
Uh-huh.
that's it. They come up again. The
Yeah,
annoying
but
little
I think
brother.
that, let's say Christmas. I know that a
Yeah.
lot of people, because it's somewhat a must do for families to come together at Christmas. And then a lot of families also don't see or speak each other for the whole freaking year. But at
Yes.
Christmas, we have to pretend that we're a happy, big family. And there comes the pressure.
Yes.
And then you have to
Exactly.
outperform, you have to look at your best, you have to be kind, you have to buy the best gifts and la 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 la. So you put a lot of pressure on the family, pretending what you're not, and then all the shit, excuse my language, comes out.
True. True. Yes, I agree with you, and I think that's just complete torture, of course, if you have to
Mhm.
do that every year and it has
Mhm.
no use, and it only, especially if
Well, if
you
you
know,
don't like it, why
if you
would
don't, exactly, well, and if the expectation is there and you feel the pressure and it's not fun,
you?
right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
on the other hand, I do want to say that there is something to be said
Hmm.
for organizing regular get-togethers, but without pressure or without, or to be open to do something else, right? Why always do the same? If part of the family doesn't like it, well, then do something else.
Hmm.
But there is something to be said about traditions, and
Hmm. Hmm.
especially in this society now where they're so individualistic, and of course we can go on live our own life, and of course we find it boring and annoying, but
Uh-huh.
also that's part of life, and that's being part of a family, is
Uh-huh.
that you have to deal with your annoying brother and just come to terms with it, and just also build new memories together.
Well, you
uh,
can have fun. It's a choice.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
and I think I think it's important to sometimes
Invest.
say, right, well, say, well, okay, maybe, yeah, it doesn't, I'd rather be on a boat or on a beach with my
Mhm.
own family or
Mhm.
with my friends,
Mhm.
instead of with my family. But sometimes I think, well, it is your family in the sense that you have a shared history, and if it makes your parents happy, but compromise, and not, of course, and I'm not talking when your parents are just horrible to you and make you feel really bad. I mean, come on. But I'm just in general, like, you know, just, I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, yes and no. I totally get what you're saying, but on the other hand, I also believe in, because if you're not comfortable, you will not get there. And then there will always be tension. There will always be, I know that my parents live in Holland. If I go to Holland, first, it's not a vacation because you have to visit a lot of family, friends, whatevers.
I know.
But if my parents could choose, they would want to see me every day.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen.
No. And I think it's really important to be very clear.
Yes, and honest. Yes. And it's not that I don't want to see you, but I don't want to spend my whole vacation every day visiting you. Love you, but that's not going to happen. And yeah, I think you have to be honest. But I know a lot of people, they say, yeah, but I cannot tell them because, and then you know, they will feel a certain kind of way. So yeah, but it's also your life. And you have to, and I was always very strict in my boundaries, especially also with family. This is what I like and this is what I don't like. And of course you can compromise one way or the other, but there is a boundary.
Yes, I understand.
And I decide if I'm gonna pass the boundary, yes or no.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes it's actually easier on the long, you know, run, and easier for you and easier for the parents if you are
if you care.
Open about that and clear about that, because so then they can adjust their expectation.
Yes. No, but that's what it is. And then when I come and I am full there, no phone, and we talk for hours, and then we have lunch or dinner or whatever, and then we had a great time. And I also had a great time. They enjoyed it, I enjoyed it, and then we can part ways again.
Yeah.
But if I would sit there and listen to them and obey what they would have wanted, oh my God.
Yes, but you know, the reason why, yes, and the reason why I think a lot of adults, children, don't follow your lead is guilt. Is guilt.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with the guilt, and so they go there and are miserable.
Yeah, but what's the use of that?
There's no, you're right.
Nobody benefits from that.
No, but you can have parents who can be really passive aggressive.
I know. But still, do your own thing.
Yes, I think that is good advice, actually.
You teach people how to treat you. That's what I say to a lot of clients as well. Family is the same thing. You teach people how to treat you. So if you don't treat yourself in a certain kind of way you teach them to deal with you a way you don't like.
That is.
You have a full control.
Yes.
The thing is, are you going to take the control and your power? That's the thing.
Exactly. Well, and it takes courage. Again, boils down to courage, and do something out of your comfort zone, because it can be scary, especially, you know, with the family relationship, right? It's scary, but I believe that if you do that, it's scary to do it, but it will lead to just more peace of mind.
Oh, such a relief. Such a relief. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it goes down the hill, down the drain, but then maybe you need a little time apart. Maybe you have to feel through it, think about it, and you can always come back.
Yes, correct.
Do whatever. You said, I thought about it, and I think if we can do it like this, then we both are happy. You can, you have to talk.
Absolutely.
Talk and own your feelings and be truthful to yourself and to the other person. And if it's family, it's the same thing, but it's a colleague, it's a neighbor, it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter.
I know. And it's actually, by doing that, you value the relationship more.
Even more.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you have the a lot of adults who kind of decide, well, okay, I'll just, for the time being, do
Hmm.
what the
Hmm.
parents want, and I'll just, until I could just sit there and do this, and then
Hmm.
it's over, and then I can live my own life again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
but
is
what if the
yeah,
getting over it takes you 40 years? What if
right.
they live long? Hello? You're
Yes,
giving up a lot of your time
yes,
to something that actually you don't want.
right, and it's impacting your relationship and your feelings. You're not doing
It
something
does.
about it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
that's,
yes, yes.
yeah, it's interesting for sure, for sure. Because another question was, um, what do you think is, no, what is the hardest part and what is the best part about being the oldest, the youngest,
Yes,
or the middle one?
yes, yeah. What's the hardest part?
What is the hardest part? What would you answer?
The I think the youngest one.
Mhm.
Let's start with the youngest one. And I read a quote which was really funny,
Uh-huh.
um, or two actually, about the youngest one. And being a younger sibling is
Uh-huh.
not easy. It's
Uh-huh.
like agreeing to a dictatorship before you're even born.
Ay, ay, ay.
But it's true. I mean, if you compare, if you say like
Okay.
the oldest are true, not dictatorship, but the oldest one had a time alone with their parents, right?
Sure.
Always the oldest one, the first one. So if I have two sons also, and I
Mhm.
think there's also a difference if you have boy or girl,
Yeah.
girl or boy girl. So I
Mhm.
had two boys, and the
Mhm.
second one, if I always thought about how for him it's different than for the oldest, of course, and
Yeah.
it's nobody's fault and nobody can change it, but it
Mhm.
is his reality that he always has an older brother who does things first.
Yeah.
Often better, of course, at some age, of course, it levels
Uh-huh.
out.
Uh-huh.
But in the beginning, he's the first one to walk. He gets the
Yeah.
first bike. He goes
Yeah.
to school the first time.
Uh-huh.
So he experiences, and especially because they're only 18 months apart, and
Uh-huh.
he's never, he always had that ever since birth. So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah, but that's a race you cannot win. Yeah.
exactly, but it can be frustrating. It
Okay.
can be
Yeah.
frustrating, I think, that if you
I'm
have,
thinking if that's the truth. I will ask my twins because they
oh,
they
but
differ
they're
half an
twins.
hour. They differ half an hour, 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's different, but it's different.
Yeah.
It's totally different, I
Well, I know
think.
they joke, say, hey, I'm the oldest, watch it. Yeah.
Yes, but in reality, they both go to school at the same time. They
Yeah,
both
they,
get to ride their bikes at the same
yeah.
time. They both, so it's
I never
yeah,
experienced it that way.
yes. I mean, I think maybe especially because I have two boys,
Hmm.
not that there's much. Well, I don't know if there's rivalry. I mean, they're also very different, right?
Uh-huh.
They're
Yeah.
totally different personalities, which
Yeah.
is also when they're younger, that can be, I think, that can lead to frustration for between them, right?
Hmm.
I think the youngest one, right? I think the youngest one, in defense, like I'm always talking now, like in defense of the youngest one.
Uh-huh.
I am a youngest one in my little family, but defense is, it's not their fault that they're the youngest one, and
Sure.
that for them certain things become easier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It is easier.
Well,
Um,
some waves are paved already.
yes, but on the other hand, also sometimes you have the youngest one who really feel neglected,
Yeah.
or feel like there's not a lot of attention because by that time, mom, for example, or dad is full-time working again, and being cared for by older siblings and stuff like that. So it really so depends. And then of course the oldest one, the more responsible one, we know that all the stereotypical.
Hmm.
Yes, and I believe that sometimes we do give older one more responsibility than
Too
um,
much.
yes, and especially with fighting, right? I think
Hmm.
one of the biggest mistakes
Hmm.
as parents that we make is ask them who started this. because you
Yeah.
will
Yeah, you
never
are
get
the oldest. You should know better. La la la.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're the oldest. Don't put the oldest one in charge. That's not fair to.
Now it's too much responsibility, and they're still the
Yes.
children.
Yes, exactly. And it's
Yeah.
not fair. Not
No.
to the youngest, not to the oldest. And
No.
also, if they're fighting, also be careful, right?
Mhm.
Be careful because, I mean, and that's something that I was very aware of, especially because I have a younger. So the difference between her and her brothers are 6 and 8 years old. So of course, at when she was little, it was no problem. But when she was 3, 4, 5 years old, of course she starts to manipulate the situation. So, and she can still press buttons, and especially, for example, the middle one
Yeah.
reacted to that. So there was a lot of fighting going on, and you have to be careful not to always choose sides or assume. Yes, you assume, and that's what I tell parents also. With a lot of sibling fighting, they always complain about one child, or, oh, we always, yes, but you don't know what happened when you were not there. A lot of times things get out of control, or things happen without you, because the oldest one can be manipulative, the youngest one can be manipulative and do something, or something has been brewing and then one of them explodes and then hits the other, but you don't know what, so don't ask who started. And don't assume you know.
No.
I
No.
always said,
Yeah.
both fight, both have the same consequence.
Mhm.
You're in the same boat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. You are a people. You are a human being. So we all have the same stuff going on.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
And we
Exactly.
should treat each other equally,
Yes.
no
Yeah,
matter which position in the family.
exactly. No matter what. Of course, you have to, there's age difference and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
both of them have a role in it.
Yeah.
Then both of them there should be consequences for both.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I said
Yes. Yes.
it.
I think this kind of wraps it up. Let me see
Right?
if there's one more. Um, no, I think that. Yeah, there's one more that I found. A sibling is the lens through which you see your childhood.
Oh, okay.
I know that I think that you don't agree, right?
Well, I'm thinking, is that true?
I don't know. I wrote it down because I thought, well, yes, because it doesn't say it. It says through which you see your childhood. I I like it because to me it symbolizes that sibling relationships are just interesting. It's interesting
Uh-huh.
how and it forms you. I'm
Uh-huh.
even it has an impact on you. I think I'm not saying
Yeah.
big, huge impact, but it
Uh-huh.
does have an impact. It
Okay.
just in
Yeah,
that way.
maybe. I'm not sure. I'm gonna marinate in this one.
Yeah.
But I'm different, I think. And why do I say that? Because I'm different in a way, like, because a lot of things that have passed, I take out what I need and I really press delete. So a lot of memories, I don't have a lot of memories.
Wow. From your
Really.
childhood?
No, really. Just a few, let's say big events or big things or big impacts. That's the things I remember. But a lot of, I always am like, if I don't need it anymore, press delete.
Okay, that's a whole other podcast we can do about your delete button.
My delete button, yeah. No, but I
Uh,
have something like, if you carry too much stuff with you, it will drag you down.
oh, yes, I agree. I think it's good to
So
process.
and so for me, that's like, oh, okay. So the siblings, I think, oh, okay. I don't think so. For me, I don't think so.
That's interesting. So I'm wondering what other people say about that. A sibling
Aha,
is
me
the
too.
lens through which you see your childhood. I think
Hmm.
it's to some degree, yes, because imagine that you wouldn't have any siblings.
Right, right.
What kind of person would you be? Would that affect? Would
Uh-huh.
that have changed who you are right now if you had no brothers and sister? I wonder about that.
Hmm. Of course, you are different in a way. Um,
Do you think you would be
but
different?
depending on your personality. Well,
Yeah.
I think I was a lot alone, even in the family.
Even within the family, right?
So I don't think I would be that different.
Right.
I don't think so. But I know a lot of people who are different because they are. Yeah. But I love people, so I will always have people around me. But
Yes.
you also have a lot of people who isolate themselves because they're our only child, and they have difficulty with connecting with people. But that's the personality you have.
That's also personality. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
So yeah.
That's true. Okay. Well,
Okay, thank you. It was very interesting again.
very interesting. I love, love, love this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And people, till next time. We don't know the topic yet. Well, we're gonna see. We're gonna see.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. You?
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Always.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.